Doesn't it sound like heaven to love your teen so well that they can't help themselves but love you back? Welcome to Pivot Parenting. I'm your host, Heather Frazier. And together, you and I are going to build more peace and joy so that your family looks forward to being together in the fun times and so that you are strong enough to overcome any obstacle that your family might face. This is where small weekly shifts that you implement create lasting change so that peace and happiness can truly abound in your home. I'm so excited that you're here tuning in to my series on love. Let me ask you, when you're thinking about your teen, is there worry, frustration, a deep-rooted desire for them to change or for you to have more control over what is happening so that everything is okay? Do you feel yourself bouncing between anger and apathy, just trying to find somewhere soft to land? Do you care so much about them that you find yourself being tied into a pretzel just to please them? And then it doesn't really even work. If this is at all relatable, you could be misunderstanding and misapplying love in your family. This is my 12-episode series on love. Let's put fear, frustration, and heartbreak behind us while I teach you how to embrace love so well that your relationship with them and yourself can't help but improve. You're going to want to start at the beginning of this series. If you haven't listened to the first 3 episodes, they build on one another. That's episode 310, Creating Safety. Start there, listen to the first 3, and then the remaining 9, you can bounce between whatever looks good. And today is the first one that is not one of those 3 foundational series. We are talking about how love is flexible, how we can bend, and we don't have to break. I want to start by teaching this concept in a very unexpected way. When our kids were little, we would tuck them in bed, and my husband and I would sing to each other that it was the most wonderful time of the day because our kids were in bed and we could sit and watch TV. And for a while, we were on an NCIS kick. We had all the usuals. We had Gibbs and DiNozzo, Ducky, Abby, Ziva, Kate. We loved it all. It wasn't long before we realized that NCIS and most television, it's all just Scooby-Doo. Let me explain that. In Scooby-Doo, you have the gang. You got Velma, Daphne, Fred, Scoob, Shaggy, the gang. And they're the classic characters that are in every episode. Just like in NCIS, you have Gibbs and DiNozzo and Abby. They're the gang. And then you meet new people in each episode. And usually in NCIS, we found a body or there's a body. That's what Gibbs announces to his team, and they all go look and see who got murdered and solve the case. And in Scooby-Doo, you have dog napping or kidnapping or some kind of theft or mystery that the gang is going to solve. And then at the end, if it weren't for those meddling kids, we would have gotten away with it. That's the line in Scooby-Doo. And it's also really similar in NCIS, right? If it weren't for those meddling agents, the bad guy would have gotten away with it. And this is true with most shows. The story arc is pretty well driven, but we like it because it's predictable. In fact, when I'm feeling really anxious or stressed or sad and I feel like my nervous system is kind of frail, I actually don't like introducing new things to it. I will re-listen to the same Audible book that I have heard before because it feels very safe. Because I understand what's coming. There aren't going to be any surprises that are upsetting to me. And so we like predictability. There's always a few new characters in an episode, but it's tidy. We know what to expect. We have confidence in our favorite team to pull it together to solve the mystery. And actually, in my book, Mom Got Jesus Wrong, Hallelujah, the heroine also talks about this phenomenon of how life doesn't seem to have clean parameters like Scooby-Doo. We don't know who the main players are all the time. We don't know who the side characters are, or even what the main plot line is. Like, what's the through line here? Sometimes we don't know. And there are a lot more than a few new faces that could help us solve the problem or be an issue. So it's not predictable. It's not quickly resolved or nicely explained. We really like fiction because at the end it ties everything up beautifully, and we've heard so many great stories that we can have confidence that things are going to be resolved in a way that we like. I remember growing up in the 90s, there were several stories and movies where it just was a tragedy and it didn't end well. And how that didn't sit well with me, because I wanted a clean ending. I wanted the happily ever after. And sometimes some stories don't get the happily ever after. I remember reading The Count of Monte Cristo, and I didn't like how it ended, because I am a diehard romantic. And so that didn't sit well with me. So these factors that we appreciate in the fictional world, or perhaps a really good documentary where we have a lot of facts and we can clean it up and tie it up pretty, they lead us down the road that's opposite to confidence, worry, fear, anxiety, panic. And in real life, we don't enjoy the drama playing out in real time, even though it's not usually as serious as kidnapping or dog napping or murders like in Scooby-Doo or NCIS. On TV, we can relax or even enjoy our increased heart rate and eager anticipation. In other words, we are flexible to lots of possibilities. And we usually love a surprise twist. Now, I am really good at predicting things. So when me and my daughter were watching Wednesday, and it was the first season, and she had already watched it, I'm kind of slow to the TV game because usually I'm doing things like talking to you guys. So I usually miss the first round of watching shows. So my daughter and I were watching it, and the bad guy came on, and I hadn't seen him a couple of times, and I was like, that's the monster. And my daughter's jaw just dropped. She's like, how do you know that? And then I see the monster's handler, and I'm like, and that's the one pulling the strings. That's the person pulling the strings. And she was so shook. I can predict things and call things out. I can pick up on the tiniest little nuances of acting and storytelling. Anyway, so I love a good plot twist, and not many things will give me a plot twist. But I'll tell you what, I don't always love a plot twist in real life. Not when I'm feeling too rigid. Because in real life, we stress out. We have expectations that we want met. We become rigid. And we tend to dislike unexpected turns, feeling upset, which leads to us being more easily broken, which in turn leaves us less able to enjoy the process, to observe the beauty of the day, like walking out and seeing a sunset because we're so in our head, or find humor and fun. Humor and fun can lighten the mood, and it's always available in pretty much every situation. Imagine just for a second how tragic it would be if Elle Woods was so stressed, moving and starting a new job, that she couldn't revel in Paulette saying, "You look like the 4th of July. Makes me want a hot dog real bad." Imagine, that would be tragic. There's this common misunderstanding that we humans have. That's one of only being able to experience one thing at a time. Meaning we can't have seemingly opposite things going on at once. Like if it's a high stress situation, your kid is struggling, we have to feel guilty if we find happiness having lunch with a friend or being okay or having fun, because how could we do that when our kid's having such a hard time? When there's a death, there is serious guilt for forgetting to grieve and having a laugh or sleeping well. How bad am I? I must not have loved him that much. Or when we're mad at our teen, we can't also be loving or kind because our default settings say that it's not productive in teaching them they did something wrong if we can joke about it or be nice. We have to be mad at them because they were stupid. No, this is rigid thinking. And my friend, it causes us to snap. Snap at our kids, snap at our spouse, snap at ourselves. And then we snap emotionally and physically and spiritually. None of that is good. Imagine your teen walking into the room and your heart skips a beat because you're so excited to see them. Just connection, love, and peace flowing between you. You're confident that no matter their mood, it's going to be okay. This is the powerful skill set my clients gain. Book a free Discover Your Disconnection Pattern call with me, and I will outline your exact process to find the peace, connection, and confidence in your teen and their future you're wanting. Visit my website, heatherfraser.com, or click the link in the show notes. Remember, Fraser is spelled with a Z-I in the middle. I look forward to meeting and helping you. So how does one stay flexible, pliable, bendable, as opposed to being rigid? Well, by using the 3 steps of episodes 3, 10, 11, and 12, which is safety, loving yourself, and regulation, you are set to be able to look at the big picture or the small picture. And this is a tool that I was taught by the fabulous Jody Moore, and it is zooming in and zooming out. Let me explain. And we can do this in any and every situation. So like I was teaching young women's the other day, and I was teaching the girls, we were talking about the Old Testament, and the Old Testament has a lot of family dysfunction, and it was about some family drama. And we talked about what was happening in the story, and then like the details, like this person said this or this person did that. And then we talked about what those things were. So people are being unkind, people are lying, people want to leave, all the basic things. And then how does this apply to us today? Because family dysfunction still exists. It's, so old it's biblical, right? I taught them the zoom in, zoom out to better apply and understand scripture in our modern life. And the same thing can go for you and I. For example, let's look at something that most parents would consider really stressful and not at all good. Like you see something on your kid's phone. The most common things that I hear are inappropriate images being sent, inappropriate things being said, like of a sexual nature, or the kid is trash talking the parent. Like, yeah, I hate my mom. She's so lame, blah, blah, blah. Those are the most common things that parents tend to bring to me that they do not like that they see on their kid's phone. All understandable. Any parent that you share those things would kind of freak out and say, that's not good. That's the zoomed in. We're zoomed in on what we saw on their phone. We have to zoom way out to be able to find more flexibility. By zooming out, we're looking at context. I just got in a fight with my kid and I was kind of hating them as well. So it makes sense that they were trash talking to me because I actually was trash talking them. They just didn't see the text or hear the phone call or hear what I said to my husband about it, right? Or it makes sense that they're sending or saying these things that are more explicit than I would like from my child, because that is developmentally normal, even though we don't like it and it might be illegal. It can still be seen as developmentally and age appropriate, also needing conversations and consequences. But when we can zoom out and see adolescence over the millennia of time, this is nothing new. I remember in the 90s, images were also being shared, but they were just printed. Does this make sense? And dirty things were still being said, but it was just handwritten or over the phone. And again, that doesn't mean that it's not harmful to our child. It 100% can be. But when we can calm ourselves down enough to see that nothing new is happening here, just in a slightly different flavor, then we can zoom back in with our larger perspective and say, hey, my sweet child, explain this to me. Help me understand what's going on. Also, these things aren't appropriate. Let's talk about it with the calmness and the clarity that this was going on when we were teenagers, that it didn't stop our age group from having functional relationships or lives, that teenagers make really impulsive, seemingly foolish decisions all the time and live to tell the tale. Okay, and it doesn't mean that there aren't harmful consequences, but everything in life has consequences, good and bad. And part of the process is them doing foolish things so that they can learn consequences from foolish choices so they stop making them. Does that make sense? So zooming in and zooming out and zooming in and zooming out so that we can get more clarity and more calm, rational, grounded approaches to our kids. I want you to think of a bridge over the ocean or a skyscraper. At first, when they started making these really big engineering projects, they would make them so strong that nothing could blow them over. And what they realized is that when they make them so strong and rigid, they actually would collapse because Mother Nature is always going to be stronger. She just is. She's awesome like that. And it's the same thing with our emotions and our rigid expectations and desires. Our emotional state and the world that we live in will always be stronger. And so we want to construct our expectations and our emotional state with enough flexibility and structure to move with whatever storms come our way to stay standing. This is the best way to access love in unexpected situations with our teens. And unexpected things are inevitable. And love is the best way to approach them, to support our child, to foster the relationship that we want with them, where they feel comfortable coming to us, where we feel confident in their overcoming the situation. It puts us together on the same team. Flexibility in our parenting is one of the best ways that we can consistently offer love to ourselves, to our children, to everyone in the household. We need structure, but we also need flexibility, because that is the best way to function. So some expectations can be good, right? Like, I expect that my kid's going to lie to me. I do. I expect my kids to not always be forthright with me, and it makes my life better. I also expect that they know I love them and have their back. And I think most of the time they do. I also expect life to throw me some curveballs, and it usually does. I expect things to go my way sometimes, and I expect them to not go our way sometimes. And this helps me to move better with the storms of life. So there's 3 different steps. We want to be grounded, which I spoke about in the last podcast. We want to zoom in and zoom out to find clarity and peace. And then the third piece is we want to have an abundant mindset. This helps us be open to all the possibilities and twists and turns. So what I mean when I say abundant mindset is, for example, when we hold our sweet babies, when they are newborns and it's the middle of the night, and they are so precious, and we picture their life. We picture them loving to have fun with us, confiding in us. We picture knowing when they've had their first kiss and when they failed a test and they're devastated, being their person. We picture them eventually getting married and having their own family. And these are all beautiful things. And then what happens is they choose not all of those things. And we don't always create the atmosphere or relationship that they want to run straight into our arms. And all of a sudden, we have failed and we haven't done a good job, and our kid is entitled and lazy. And how did we get here? How did we get here? Because we went from this beautiful dream of what our family would look like to something potentially very different. And I know this because this was me. And I pictured my kids loving the religion that I taught them and living that religion and doing all of the things that I thought would be fabulous. And some of them are choosing that and some of them are not. And if I had a scarcity mindset, I would think that something terrible has gone wrong, and I would be extraordinarily disappointed in myself, in my children, in my life. But because I have practiced very hard having an abundant mindset, I can look at all of the possibilities and respect my children's agency to have the life that they want. Not the one that I want for them, but the one that they want. Weird how that works. And because I have worked hard to practice an abundant mindset, I am more flexible in how their happiness can look and how our relationship can look. Some really common ones that I see parents struggle a lot is when their child comes out as bisexual or homosexual or different gender identities, or not wanting to go to the school that their parents wanted, or different political affiliations, or different stances on social issues. All of these things don't have to mean a more distant relationship or a less supportive and loving one when we have an abundant mindset. And for my Christian friends out there, this does not mean abandoning your Christian values. If you actually look at what Christ taught, it is better embracing them. It is allowing for agency, it is allowing for differences. It is following the commandment of loving our neighbor or our kid as ourself. There's no caveat. There's no asterisk that says they have to agree with you in X, Y, and Z areas. It's just called loving them. And so please understand that if your religion is teaching you, or the culture of your religion is teaching you, that people need to be a certain way in order to be loved and accepted in your life, I invite you to look at that a second time and really dig deep in what Christ actually teaches, because that may or may not be aligned with actual Christ-like values. So the 3 things: be grounded, have an abundant mindset, zoom in and zoom out. And then the cherry on top, when we can do this, just like watching Scooby-Doo or NCIS, we can rest assured because we already know the outcome. So just like when we're watching a show or reading our favorite book, we can love and support each other. We can have ups and downs, and we know that we will choose each other. Those are all of the things within our control, which means we already know how the episode will end, the episode of our life, of our relationship. We might not know how it looks in the specifics or how it will play out day to day, but we will know the emotional experience that we're going to have, so we can be confident, just like watching our favorite show. I know that Gibbs is going to bring Abby a big gulp, and he's going to give her a kiss on the forehead, and she's going to have something brilliant that solves the case. Just as confidently as I know that if my kids come to me with a problem, I'm going to love and support them, and there is nothing that can damage our relationship in how I choose to love and support them. So I can have the confidence that our season is going to play out just fine because I have confidence in my ability to love my kids, to choose them even when it's hard. And when I don't, I know how to repair that. And so this is what I want you to practice for the next week. Be flexible in your expectations. Zoom in and zoom out. When you need to recalibrate your nervous system so that you can do this, take a time out for yourself to do that so that you can bend and not break.
Heather is the one, an expert in the field. She knows her parenting stuff, including how confusing it can be. You've tried it all, and it's a lost cause. Crying in the closet.